Welcome to another episode of The Unexplained. Tonight we're going to be talking about curses. Are curses real or just a figment of your imagination? Join us as we explore this very interesting topic. Well, just to talk about definitions, which I love, a curse is simply a communication that can be expressed as a wish that some form of adversity or misfortune will befall or attach to some other entity, one or more persons, a place, or an object. So basically, whatever you want. I curse you. I curse you upon the house of Montague. Particularly, a curse may refer to such a wish or pronouncement made effective by a supernatural or spiritual power, such as a god or gods, a spirit, or a natural force, or else as a kind of spell by magic or witchcraft. In the latter sense, such as magic, a curse can also be called a hex or jinx. Like, when you say the same thing at the same time and you pinch each other and you go, jinx, you're it. That kind of a thing, or throwing salt over your shoulder to prevent a curse from occurring because of what you just did. In many belief systems, the curse itself, accompanied by some sort of ritual, is considered to have some causative force in the result. To reverse or eliminate a curse, it's sometimes called a removal or a breaking, and also kind of a binding to stop a particular person who has certain powers or knowledge in causing a curse. You bind them from doing so. Often it is believed to require elaborate or ritual prayers, so you need to know the ritual or certain types of words or prayers to say in order to stop a curse or to invoke a curse. And sometimes you can actually invoke a spirit to assist you with your curse. And I'll talk about that on another video, how to invoke a spirit, whether it be a demon or an angel. So stay tuned for that. The study of forms of curses comprise a significant proportion of the study of both folk religion or folklore. The deliberate attempt to levy curses is often part of the practice of magic. Now, magic can be spelled M-A-G-I-C or M-A-G-I-C-K, depending on who you're talking to. Now, in the Hindu culture, the sage or the Raji is believed to have the power to bless and to curse. Because remember, a curse is really just the shadow part of a blessing. We say that all the time. Someone sneezes, and then you say, bless you. But you probably could also say, curse you, and the same result would happen. Now, there are several different types of curses or types of cultures that practice different types of curses. The African American hoodoo presents us with the jinx. That's the type that we usually say, jinx, and it's fun. So a lot of people don't understand the difference between hoodoo and voodoo. Hoodoo, known as Gigbo or GGBO in West Africa, is an African American folk magic. Basically, it's something that the slaves brought over from West Africa. It consists mainly of African folkloric practices and beliefs with a significant blend of American Indian botanical knowledge and European folklore. It is in no way linked to any particular form of theology, and it can be adapted in numerous forms of outward religious worship. Although it is not a religion, there are elements of African and European religions at the core of hoodoo beliefs. Teachings and rituals are passed down from one practitioner to another. There are no designated priests or priestesses, and there are no divisions between initiates and laity. Rituals vary depending on the individual performing them. There is no strict approach that one must adhere to. Today, hoodoo is mainly practiced in the southern states, and most people who practice hoodoo are Protestant Christians. What happens when the slaves came over? Their religion of practicing natural arts was intermingled with the European religion of Christianity. And when Christ was introduced to the Africans, they incorporated those rituals that they would learn from their slave masters into their own religion. So it became hoodoo. Voodoo is something a little different. The word voodoo comes from an African word meaning spirit or God. Now, voodoo is probably not what you think it is. It might be easier to start with what voodoo isn't. Voodoo isn't accurately portrayed in most movies, TV shows, and books. Even some documentaries and nonfiction books are misleading. Voodoo isn't a cult, black magic, or a devil worship. People who practice voodoo are not witch doctors or sorcerers or occultists. Voodoo isn't a practice intended to hurt or control others. Most voodooists have never seen a voodoo doll, unless, like you, they saw it in a movie. Voodoo isn't morbid or violent. Voodoo isn't the same everywhere. Not everyone who practices voodoo does it in exactly the same way or agrees on exactly the same things. So, what the hell is voodoo? Voodoo is a religion that originated in Africa. In the Americas and Caribbean, it is thought to be a combination of various African, Catholic, and Native American traditions. It is practiced around the world, but there is no accurate count of how many people are voodooists. Voodoo has no scripture or world authority. It is community-based, and it centers and supports individual experiences, empowerment, and responsibility. Voodoo is different in different parts of the world and varies from community to community. This is mostly about voodoo in New Orleans and Haiti. Voodoo embraces and encompasses the entirety of human experience. It is practiced by people who are imperfect and may use religion for their own purposes. So why do people who practice voodoo are thought of as being scary or demons or, evil witchcraft people who are out to control you? Well, racism clouds our view of voodoo. It is rooted in slavery and intricately connected to this hemisphere's political and social evolution. Voodoo was practiced in America and the Caribbean by slaves of African descent whose culture was both feared and ridiculed. Slaves were not considered fully human. Their religion was dismissed as pure superstition. Their priests were denigrated as witch doctors. Their gods and spirits were denounced as evil. One of the only successful slave revolutions in modern history occurred in Haiti in the late 1700s. Slaves of African descent overthrew European rulers and took control of the country. Many slaves were voodooists, and some of their military leaders were priests who inspired and organized their communities to fight for freedom. The Haitian Revolution provoked fear in other European and American colonies that were reliant on vast numbers of slaves as plantation labor. The imagery and vocabulary of voodoo and other Afro-Caribbean religions became threatening and ingrained in those cultures as something horrifying associated with bloodshed and violence. It was brutally repressed in most places and it became taboo. Over time, American culture became fascinated by this mysterious tradition and began to depict it in movies and books as sensationalized horror. Voodoo practices were dreamed up by Hollywood. Most of the disturbing images fixed in our minds are something we saw in a movie. Hollywood created a mythology that we have taken as truth. Voodoo has become part of modern folklore as something evil that can hurt us. But voodoo is widely practiced in Haiti and is still relevant in politics there. Politics and religion make a controversial mix. In that regard, voodoo is the same as any belief system. In the United States, many voodooists are afraid of how they will be treated, so they hide their religion. While this is understandable, it also reinforces suspicion that they practice in secret to conceal something bad or violent. Fear begets fear. In the Middle Eastern and Mediterranean culture, it is the source of the belief in the evil eye, which may be the result of envy, but more rarely it's said to be the result of deliberate curse. In order to be protected from the evil eye, protection item is made from dark blue circular glass with a circle of white around the black dot in the middle, which is reminiscent of the human eye. The size of the protective eye item may vary. Evil eye is a way of protecting you from a curse. Now, German people, including the Pennsylvania Dutch, speak in terms of hexing, from the German word for witchcraft. And a common hex in days past was that laid by a stable witch who caused milk cows to go dry and horses to go lame. So as you can see, all of this is culminated in our culture of thinking about what is a curse. There is a broad popular belief in curses being associated with the violation of tombs, of mummified corpses, or the mummies themselves. The idea became so widespread as to become a pop culture mainstay, especially in horror films. The Curse of the Pharaohs is supposed to have haunted the archaeologists who excavated the tomb of Pharaoh of Tutankhamun, King Tut, whereby an imprecation was supposedly pronounced from the grave by the ancient Egyptian priests on anyone violated its precinct. Similar and dubious suspicions have surrounded the excavation and examination of the natural, not embalmed, alpine mummy Otzi the Iceman. While such curses are generally considered to have been more popularized and sensationalized by British journalists of the 19th century, ancient Egyptians were in fact known to place curse inscriptions on markers protecting temple and tomb goods or property. Basically, we didn't want you grave robbing the Egyptians. Another thing which is interesting, bringing us back to the United States, is the Louisiana curse of Julia Brown. Julia Brown was a well-respected magic practitioner in her small town of Frenier, Louisiana. If someone got sick, they had two options. They could make the journey into New Orleans, or they could turn to Julia for a supernatural healing. Well, a lot of people didn't have a lot of money or ability to travel, so they stayed with the people that they knew, and Julia was one of those well-respected people. Though the townsfolk respected Julia, they also began to fear her, and they took her for granted. When she started to feel as if her neighbors were using her, many of them demanding her help without asking, Julia Brown developed a bit of a mean streak and began scarring the ungrateful locals by predicting when terrible things were about to happen to them. Whether she was foretelling the future events or placing a curse, it seemed that Julia always knew when something bad was going to happen to the town of Frenier. On September 28th, 1915, Julia made her final terrifying prediction, and after she made her prediction, she died. In the final weeks leading up to her death, she was often heard singing, "One day I'm gonna die, and I'm gonna take all of you with me." Over and over again, she would sing this song, "One day I'm gonna die, and I'm gonna take all of you with me." Was Hurricane Katrina an act of poor judgment by President Bush to get the people out of New Orleans, or was it just the continuation of the curse of Julia Brown. You want to learn more about Julia Brown? Definitely Google her to find out more about who she was and who she is. The entire town gathered at Julia's funeral, hoping that the show of attention would help her soul rest easy. But unfortunately for them, it appeared to have the opposite effect. Julia Brown was true to her word. As the nails were hammered into her coffin, a sudden and unusually devastating hurricane ripped through the entire village, leaving only 2 citizens left alive. Hundreds of people died during the storm. In fact, so many were lost that locals claims it's still common for skeletons to surface today, only to drift down the muggy swamp. Wow, doesn't that sound familiar? Like the Katrina hurricane when the complete devastation of New Orleans. So is Julia Brown still upset that people didn't honor her or respect her? I don't know. Okay. The next type of curse that happens are curses that happen today. One of the most famous curses is the poltergeist curse. Now, I know you guys have heard about it. If you watch the movie and you follow the folklore, you can even see tons of documentaries about the poltergeist curse. I just watched one just a few weeks ago, and it was totally interesting. So all you have to do is Google poltergeist curse, check it out. Very interesting. The main thing I realized about the poltergeist movie curse was this. They used real skeletons in the movie, in the first movie, the original movie, Poltergeist. They used real skeletons because they didn't want to pay for, the plastic skeletons. So they used real skeletons. After they used the real skeletons, a lot of things started happening. Nothing too tragic, no killings, nothing like that. Just some weird things started happening. Pictures started moving on the walls, things started banging around, just eerie, weird stuff. In the second movie of Poltergeist 2, what they realized is that they continued. Even though all these things were happening, they continued to use real skeletons in the movie production. So when that happened, people feel like the curse kicked in and said, okay, y'all motherfuckers ain't listening to me. Okay, we try to give you warnings with a little flashing lights, with a little moving of stuff around, that maybe it's not a good idea to use real freaking skeletons. But here's the second movie and you're still using real skeletons, so we're gonna have to kick it up a notch. So that's exactly what they did. The way they kicked it up a notch was with Heather O'Rourke. Heather O'Rourke was the beautiful, sweet little Carol Ann in the movie. And she went through 3 sequels of the movie, the second movie 2, and third movie, when she finally died of, at first they said that she died at 12 years old of pneumonia, but in actuality, she died of a mysterious disease that ended up killing her. She really just basically couldn't breathe anymore, and she died. It was a horrible, horrible death for her mom, for the people on set, just everyone, because she was a beautiful young girl with lots of talent and a great future ahead of her. The other death was of Dominique Dune, played Dana Freeland, who was the sister of Carol Ann, the teenage sister, and she ended up getting stabbed to death by her boyfriend. Her boyfriend was kind of abusive and everything, and she broke up with him. And in the second movie, she ended up being killed horribly by her boyfriend, her ex-boyfriend, because she broke up with him just in the driveway. Just horrible. And what's so crazy is that there was a friend of hers who was going over lines, a fellow actor who was going over lines with her in her house. He didn't come out and save her and help her at all. What he did was he ran to a neighbor's house to call the police. Why? I don't know why he ran to a neighbor's house instead of calling from there. I don't know. But he did, and I guess in the, flight or fight. He decided flight instead of fight. So she ended up dying in the driveway. Dominic was arrested, but in actuality, he went to prison for only 6 months, and he was let free. For less than 4 years, rather. And he was released You know, very horrible for her family and everything. It's just a horrible sight. But this is just one or two of the main deaths that happened. Other deaths did happen. I would definitely suggest that you go and you just type in the poltergeist curse and check out the videos and documentaries that have been done about it, because it's really compelling. If any curse is real, I really feel that the poltergeist curse is real. And also, I don't know, I have to go back to Julia Brown. I don't know, Katrina. I think that shit was real. So, guys, are curses real? Are they just a figment of your imagination? Basically, like I said, don't disturb the dead. Respect a person who says that they are a voodoo priestess. And basically, remember the rule of karma. And let me give you a definition of what karma is. Karma is a means action or work or a deed. It also refers to the spiritual principle of cause and effect, where intent and actions of an individual or cause influences the future of that individual or that effect. Good intent and good deeds contribute to good karma and future happiness, while bad intent and bad deeds contribute to bad karma and future suffering. Karma is closely associated with the idea of rebirth in many schools of Asian religions. In these schools, karma is the present effects of one's future in the current life, as well as the nature of quality of future lives. If you put bad things out there, it'll come back to you threefold. If you put good things out there, then good things will come back to you threefold. So basically, it's the power of suggestion. It is the power of affirmation. You put out good things. If you view good things in your mind and you say, this is where I want to be, this is what I want to do, and you plan it out in your head, then it will actually happen. The power of suggestion. If you believe in that, then you have to believe in curses. I'm telling you, you cannot have the light without the dark. So you cannot believe in the good without also believing in the bad. Thanks so much, guys, for listening to another episode of The Unexplained. Please comment in the comments below. Do you believe in curses? Do you believe in evil spirits or the power of karma? Let me know in the comments below. Let me know whether or not you believe that if you put it out there, it'll come back to you threefold. Tell me your experiences. Or let me know this is just a bunch of new age hooey. Okay, see you next time on The Unexplained with Crystal Hickerson. Peace, 2 fingers.